spending of today. I am the future of America. I'll have less freedom than my parents and grandparents did when they were in high school. You might compare being a high school student senior to standing in a very long line at the post office only to have the window closed when it was your turn. Sir? I'm sorry. My original plan for today was to talk to you about the Constitution and our Founding Fathers' ideas of a better governmental system. I came here to talk about the American Revolution, about men and women who have fought and died in every war since then, and to represent my generation in present-day America. Since the Tea Party article was released in the Bakersfield, California on Sunday, I've received a lot of emails regarding my involvement in the Tea Party. Some were against it, some were for it, but most wished to discuss Republicans, Democrats, and repeat what the various news networks tell them to say. So in addition to talking about my beliefs regarding the Constitution and our Founding Fathers, I'd like to comment on the belief systems of our congressional leaders. Unfortunately, many of our congressmen believe they have a cushy, lifelong career with excellent benefits and a lot of perks. They don't have to listen to the peasantry once they've obtained such status. They're out of touch, and they are the ones that should be standing in the unemployment line.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I was much like today's voters. I was our Founding Fathers' worst nightmare. Careless and ignorant, I didn't really know what it meant to place my hand over my heart during the Pledge of Allegiance, or to remove my hat during a rodeo while someone sang the Star Spangled Banner. I couldn't have cared less about politics, news anchors, presidential elections, or what the Constitution truly meant. I couldn't have told you how many men signed the Declaration of Independence because my school's history books barely mentioned it. The Constitution was nothing more than a little postage stamp-sized picture in the corner of the page, legible only with a microscope. That history book never told me that 5 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were labeled traitors and tortured to death by the British. I didn't know 12 of the signers had their homes ransacked and burned. The history book never told me that 3 lost their sons in the Revolutionary War. Our Founding Fathers literally signed away their lives, their children's lives, and their last dollar, but for what? For modern politicians to use as a doormat when they enter office? They have no respect for these documents, any more than they do for our Founding Fathers. Until I started studying American history outside of school, I wasn't aware of any of these facts. I wasn't provided with a proper education on the Constitution. In middle school, they did teach a quickie lesson on the preamble, but that was it. And I fear my younger brothers won't be provided with an education on the Constitution and their rights, giving the government more incentive to step on them. Our Constitution has become that little postage stamp-sized picture on the bottom page of my little brother's history book.
Not to me!
But with congressmen like Phil Hare of Illinois in office who say things like, I don't care about the Constitution, why should that surprise you? Why should it surprise you that our children know nothing of the Constitution, nothing of the Bill of Rights, and our elected leaders who swore to uphold them choose to disregard these documents for their own personal gain?
That's right!
I recently registered to vote, couldn't find a party that truly represents what I believe. Although I have conservative values, I'm not a Republican. Although I believe our healthcare system does need reform, I'm not a Democrat. Anyone that wishes to label me may call me an American. But there's no party for Americans who are sick and tired of politics, sick of listening to biased news, sick of presidents who cheat on their wives, sick of presidents and sick of presidents who hang out with terrorists. How many senators have been caught with their pants down in the past several years? How many elected representatives have a history of sexual harassment, misappropriating campaign funds, or just brawling in the street like drunken teenagers? If these people can't run their own lives, how can they be expected to run our government? Years ago. They sounded so much better than I didn't inhale, but I never tried it again. And I've been to 57 states for the infamous I'm not a crook. Instead of Washington or Jefferson, we have corrupt politicians that won't raise minimum wage, but will gladly vote themselves raises after doing nothing to deserve it. In the private sector, they wouldn't be given raises, they'd be fired. They work for us. We are and I'm surely not here to support their agendas. I'm here to ask why we elected them in the first place. We're all human, we all make mistakes, but I'd like to think that we should raise our standards and expectations a little when it comes to electing the leaders of the most powerful nation on earth. Our representatives should not mimic Tiger Woods, Martha Stewart, or Mike Tyson. They are elected officials, not celebrities, rappers, or professional athletes. I'm not just talking about the presidency, I'm talking about school boards, judges, city councilmen, assemblymen, and senators. If the Ten Commandments in our laws mean nothing to them, what makes you think they have any respect for the Constitution, your rights? Oh, wait, I apologize, I mentioned the Ten Commandments. Is it still okay with Bakersfield? Would I be able to say one nation under God without getting sued? Why do I have to strive to be politically correct in a free nation? Why should I be condemned for speaking my mind? Some of the negative emails I received called me a racist for participating in this Tea Party and accused me of being in a cult. That offends me. They said that I'm just a brainwashed pawn of the Republican Party, and that also offends me. These insults and accusations are just a distraction meant to demean our cause, and our cause is taking back America. Love to take ownership of this movement. I have one thing I'd like to tell the leaders of both parties. Give me freedom or I'll get up and get it myself. What part of we the people don't you understand? We are not for sale. We were not one to stand by unless you tear at the fabric of this nation any longer. If the Democrats think anybody wants to hear us, they are out of touch. If the Republican Party wants to claim a piece of the Tea Party, let them watch from the sidelines of what America really wants. You are not representing the people who elected you. The two parties cannot play in our fears to garner our votes any longer. We've watched enough of this dog and pony show. Global warming, terror alerts. We need a stimulus bill now or the economy will crash. We have to take health care now or the economy will crash. Bail out the banks, bail out the auto industry. My biggest fear is that our government has become too big to succeed. The government's biggest fear, as it should be, is us. As each election cycle draws close, their fears increase. They were all shocked when Senator Kennedy's seat was filled by a Republican. Why? If they were listening to the people, they would realize that the future holds for them. They can try to ignore us now, but they can't ignore us at election time when we stand together as Americans and start sending pink slips to Washington. That would have loved to manage everything for them, up to and including their diet. Sugar taxes. Why can't I drink a Pepsi without someone trying to tax it? Why can't I eat a Big Mac without regulations? Our politicians seem all too quick to penalize us in many different ways, and our leader apologizes to the world and calls America arrogant, dismissive, and even derisive. I haven't dismissed anybody of responsibility for the attacks on September 11th. 2,750 Americans died in the World Trade Center, and I would think that after two presidents spent billions of dollars at the expense of thousands of lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, that they would have found Osama bin Laden by now. But politics came into play, and our government wants us to forget it and act like it never happened. America wasn't born on its knees. We are a free nation today because during the American Revolution, we didn't lay down our muskets and apologize to England. The plans for our future as a nation were written centuries ago by men with a gift of foresight far superior to any group of men since then. It is our choice whether or not to follow in our founding fathers' footsteps or drift aimlessly through uncharted waters with a pirate at the wheel. It's time to look back and see where we came from in order to establish where we're going. I want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity. It was an honor to speak to you today. Good luck to the post office if you're filing late. God bless you all. God bless the United States.